Good evening and welcome to the Georgetown Middle High School Building Committee meeting for January 14th, 2014. First on the agenda is to approve the minutes of December 9th, 2013. Did everyone get a chance to look at them? Did we not send them?
No,
I didn't see him.
I didn't see him either.
Why don't we table them?
We'll table the minutes for now. Okay. We only have one invoice this evening, and that is from DRA for $5,401.50, and that includes some geotechnical services that were done at the middle high school that DRA is going to discuss with us tonight. And one of the things I know that we're going to talk about is that we did get some good news from the MSBA in terms of what they're going to allow us to submit. So, Carl, why don't you go ahead and fill us in?
You want to act on the invoice first?
I guess we should, yes.
Or does it
Thank you.
depend on what I say?
I was tabling.
You never know.
There might be an asterisk on
I'm
there.
tabling everything
Or two.
now. All right. Any discussion on the invoice?
I'd like to
Would anyone like to
Motion.
make a
I'll
motion?
make a
Okay.
motion to approve the invoice as stated.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll pass the slip around. All right. I was so excited about the good news that I forgot about the bills.
Right, this was,
I was just gonna say, before Kyle
Yeah.
starts, before you can look at that one-page memo that we received today from MSBA.
Oh,
So
you copied it?
As Kyle was explaining,
Yeah,
you
you
might
have
wanna
that.
just look at the second
It's
paragraph,
on the email.
which is the important paragraph about what they're looking for to allow us to go into the,
Is that why you were trying to reach Carol?
no, I was
Oh.
trying to reach Carol because I was looking to inquire about a DESC recommendation to address the things that MSBA and DESC wanted, to make sure it was okay with her, because they,
Okay.
DRA presented, but we'll talk about that
I
when
can
Kyle
mention
gets done
that
with
too.
that.
All right.
The lingering issue, remember, with the middle high school, with the MSBA, was about the drainage, the scope of work. Whether the amount of information that we had at this time was sufficient to scope out the work and put a reasonable price on it. And we had assured them, this goes back a ways now, we had assured them with the last submittal back in, I don't know, September, October, I think, that we were confident that we had a conceptual solution, we had enough information, because, as you know, you've, sort of expended the extent of the appropriation. We don't have any more funds to go do additional survey or additional geotech information, or at this time. We will do it later, after May town meeting, before moving ahead with final design. And that made MSBA a little nervous, saying, "Oh, you're going to do future investigation? Why don't you do it now?" And basically, we're saying, "Well, the town doesn't have the money now, but we feel we don't necessarily need it to scope out the project and put a reasonable budget on it." And at first, they seemingly allowed that and approved us at, what was it, the November board meeting?
Yes, November.
But the letter of approval came through with some conditions, and the conditions said, please, do a little bit more investigation before you submit schematic design, which is coming up in February, that we plan to submit schematic design. We, had that conference call and said, do we really need to do this? We feel confident that we have a conceptual solution, and so forth. The result of the conference call was basically they said we have to think about it, but we suggested could we come in person and bring our civil engineer, and we'll try to lay it out for you, because coincidentally I'm not sure of John Jump's title there at the MSBA, but he's a civil engineer, that's his background. So we did have that meeting. I forget the exact date. I don't know if you have that, Pat. But
It was the day of the snowstorm.
Yeah, that
The
snowstorm.
day of the snowstorm, they almost canceled it. We all trudged our way in there.
We-
It was
Yeah.
in December.
We left early. The meeting started at 1. They said we have to end at 1:30 because the governor is saying the
Shut
state
those
agencies have to
down.
shut down. So we had that half-hour meeting and brought our civil engineer, and we did explain the conceptual solution. We showed them the extent of the calculations, the amount of information we had. We did have some additional information from when we submitted back in September, so that, that pleased them. We had discovered some additional drawings Mike Anderson had, and coincidentally, we'd gotten some information from the turf field people over at the high school too. They had done some soil investigation, so we were able to incorporate that too and say, we've got some additional information. We've incorporated that into our thinking, and will incorporate it into the scope and budget when that's submitted in February. They said, thank you very much. We'll check on this. We may have to, get some kind of letter from you or some kind of reassurance that, to respond to the letter that they had sent out requesting. They're kind of a bureaucracy. If they send out something that says, please submit additional information, they need to close the file. And, and so that's today's email, the one that Pat just circulated, is basically they're saying, please submit this letter to explain, so we can put it in our file that tell us, summarize what additional information did you acquire, what information have you incorporated in your thinking, and are you confident that you have enough, at this time without any additional appropriation? So,
Wasn't there some question about the hydrology coming from the upper field, and that we
Yes,
thought
one
we
of their
had
requests,
information
George,
from a
that's
prior
right.
field study?
one of their requests was, in addition to doing additional investigation, could you do a hydrologic study for that? And that's one reason we brought the civil engineer to explain how he did his calculations, to size the pipe and to look at the affected areas. And once they understood that, and that we did have a survey for the whole property, they were okay with it. So we were still, as we say, do this, further, investigation and further calculations to refine the pipe sizes and manholes and so forth after May, when more money is appropriated. So we aren't done from that point of view. But, what we're gonna do now is put reasonable prices on the scope as we best know it, and include some contingencies. For
Right.
instance, the other one, and we did mention this to them, now that we know the soils in the Pembroke area, we're going to assume the soils at the high school are similar, and so we'll carry a higher number for that contingency, but we won't do the investigation now. Again, with your, agreement, we would do it in the future. And if we have to have the same kind of capping and the same kind of monitoring, we would include that in the price, at this time. And if it proves that we don't need it in the future, it's only gonna come down, which is the way the MSBA likes to see things.
Right.
They don't want prices to go up from when they approve it, but they're okay if they come down. So we'll take the worst-case scenario now and move forward.
So do we have the money to finish the feasibility?
It's-
Yes.
That's what we're
So
saying.
that's
We
what
can finish
the
it without
result
any
is.
further appropriations,
Right.
Tilly.
Yeah, and at the end of that second paragraph, that's where they go in and they say they want the district to say that it's comfortable that the design team has got enough information and is gonna proceed without any additional funding for the feasibility phase, which is what we're in,
Right.
which is what we're gonna be obviously advancing beyond into the schematic design stage once that funding is all approved. That'll be the whole cost of the project.
Well, the
going
design
to the town.
development path,
Design-
we're in schematics now.
In
but,
schematics, yeah.
And we'll ghostwrite that letter for
Yeah.
Carol, as we've
Okay.
done in the past, but she'll need to sign the district.
Okay, yeah, no, that's really
So-
good news,
So we
because,
hung up on the conference
Yes.
call, and I said I was optimistic, and you said you weren't.
I know.
on that one.
That's true, Carl, and I am Miss Optimist, so that's pretty surprising, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I think it was because of his engineering background.
Mhm.
I just felt that he was gonna be more particular. So I do love to be wrong.
I also think they understand the urgency of trying to have this run in parallel with the Pembroke, so that you have a chance of getting it ready, because if they didn't let us in now, we wouldn't be ready.
Well, I'd like to think my personal plea to please let
Begging
this
always,
go
yes,
through.
begging never
And I
hurts.
did.
Yes.
I did. I absolutely asked them. I absolutely did come out and say, please, I know it's irregular, but please really give this some serious consideration, because it's a very difficult time for this town. So, that's really good news. Is there anything else that you want to add to
Yeah, the only
that?
thing I was gonna mention is that MSB, or DESE had sent through a couple of things with regard to the DESE plan. And Courtney and Kyle prepared a response, a very simple solution to it, which went to Carol for her approval. And once she approves it, then this will go to MSBA, DESE for their approval, and that should close that particular loop, assuming it's
The,
acceptable to them.
The Department of Education reviews special ed
Right.
needs and layout for these projects. And one of the things they always look for are the special ed spaces distributed through the school, not all grouped together in one, cluster, and are they in the flow of the school, the academics, so kids are mainstream, they're not segregated. So we had this review, we had done this previously. This latest review, what they picked up on were 2 spaces happened to be adjacent to one another.
Ah.
And it's like, 2 out of about 10.
Right.
The other 8 are all distributed, and 2 happen to be near each other. And they happen to be near the office area, although they're in the flow of, with the new design, they're in the flow of the academic area now. But just to satisfy DESE, we showed Carol a very quick substitution. If we take one of those spaces, move it upstairs, and just take a conventional classroom and swap them. Then graphically and, from a configuration point of view, they're distributed in the school, and it moves it away from the office area, so it looks more like they're in the flow of the school. So we haven't responded yet, because we just need Carol and the special ed director's approval,
Right.
but we'll do that, and we would anticipate that would take care of the
And then it's
issue.
a simple
Yeah, and
solution.
we'll see if we can get
Yeah.
a hold of Donna and Carol's, since Carol's out right now.
Right.
so.
It's virtually changing names on rooms, it's not really
Right.
extending the scope of work at all.
All right, that's
So.
great. All right, and so the FEMA grant? Do we have any information? No,
We don't,
we still, right, Mike?
it's in a holding pattern, I think, yeah.
All right, does anyone have anything else on the middle high school?
Do you have the invoice? Needs to be
Yes,
signed?
it's being signed over here.
Because I have a new arrangement with the town finance department that I have to review them. Or she'll take them and pay them, and I have to put the codes on them and sign off on them.
Okay,
I'm glad to do it at the meeting. It makes it easier for them, so
all right,
I'll sign off on them, pass them to me, I'll get them done, I'll pass them to Mike.
sounds good.
Perfect.
How's that work, Mike?
All right, then, would anyone care to make a motion
Make a
to
motion
adjourn?
Second.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Colin.
Michelle made the motion.
Do a second, please.
Stu.
Oh, I did 13. I'm still on 13.
See that?
It might be the environmentalist.
That's the environmental.
Yeah, that's, Green Seal's got it.
These numbers are big.
I printed them as I received them, just in case the next time.
The change order, that's,
Yeah, we had no choice.
we gotta find.
Good evening and welcome to the School Building Committee
We're not
for
gonna
January 14th, 2014.
mention it.
Would anyone care to make any public comment? We are going to table the minutes for this evening. We'll put those on the agenda for the next meeting. All right, I'd like to go through the invoices, and there are many this evening. The first one is from DRA. It includes an invoice from Andrew T. Johnson for doing our printing, correct. And that's in the amount of $32,376.80. The second one is from DRA. This is for the investigation with Wilcox and Barton. And this is in the amount of $68,696.48. This third one is another DRA invoice with additional funds, additional fees from Wilcox and Barton, and the amount of $2,352.30. We have an invoice from Municipal for $36,820. Just want to include that in the packet we're giving the town. Okay, that right there. And is there anything on that? That was just straight. Okay. We have an invoice from Cabot Risk Strategies for $1,000, and this is part of our insurance. One from BSC Group, and this was actually the peer review that the Concom did, and that's for $762. We have an invoice from Green Seal Environmental for the environmental monitoring that they're doing on site for $17,694.10.
Are they gonna do like a running tab like our consultants and architect do, that, you know, we have this amount, and this is what percentage or
The
what
percentage,
we're done or
Well,
something?
they're actually, their contract is strictly day rates. In other words, they work by the day. They have
So once they hit that last day, they get the $250,000, they stop,
That
or
was
what?
just the budget.
What happens, right now, the committee approved, it's noted in the meeting, last time we approved a budget of $239,000, which was considerably less than W and B for the same speculative 200 days of on-site monitoring. Again, like, hopefully we'll use less than that. If we get to the point where we need more than that, then obviously we'd be coming back and asking for some money to be transferred into from the contingency into that account. But right now, they're strictly working on a day basis, so if we get to a point where we get the site pretty well covered over and sealed over, and there's not gonna be any chances of dust, they won't be there. So right now, for the next period of time, we're gonna be working very aggressively on the site. There'll be soil, so they've been there basically every day, with the exception of the contractor telling us on a particular day they're not gonna do any soils work, all they're gonna do is erect farms or something, and they're going 6 days a week out there. So there are times when they're not touching any dirt other than working on top of the safe areas and putting farms in, then they're not there that particular day. But again, like I said, that's just gonna be a running total, consistent with the 239 budget that was set up, which was far less than W and B.
Okay. The next one is from Town Council, Copeland and Page, in the amount of $1,977.50. And we have, did I do Cabot? Yes, okay. We have received an invoice from the school, from Carol. There are 5 invoices. All of them are centered on the steps that they had to take to cover the fields, the soil in the fields. And while it wasn't part of this committee, ultimately, those fields have been taken over or being absorbed by the building committee. And a lot of the steps that Carol took were based on the fact that, we didn't know if the arsenic was naturally occurring or not. And therefore, it was still under the EPA's management, and as such, had to be treated that way. So she had to take steps to, mitigate whatever the EPA asked for and what Wilcox and Barton were recommending. So these invoices are just based on, what she did. Altogether, they're, I don't know, under 6,000, but I will present them each individually. I just wanted you to know why they're before us.
And I just, so, at that time, the building committee was not aware of what was going on, if everybody remembers that weekend. So, but, you know, like Ellie said, everything that was coming from Russ Barton to Carol is basically what she did, you know, coming through via what the EPA would, no, not the EPA, DEP. I'm like, wait, that's
Did I
not
say
right.
D-
You said EPA, and
Did I
DEP,
say
with the
EPA?
Yeah, you said
DEP.
EPA.
Right, right, no, it's the DEP, what the
Right.
DEP would recommend for guidelines, so.
All right, so the first one was the Georgetown Building Supply for $564.52.
Which one was for? That was for the fence. Just tell me.
Both of these are for the fence. There's another one for $70.38. And then,
Oh, yeah.
$2,096.50 for mulch for Essex County Co-op. And then Pro Bark for chips for the bark mulch.
Cover the hot spots.
Yes, $950 and $2,850. I didn't total those, but that's the extent of what they're doing.
So they had to put hay bales for runoff too, right?
No,
The hay
do they-
bales, the contractor handled that.
those.
Yeah, they just did the bark and the fence. The contractor did all the hay bales around the areas that were filling those areas in.
The Essex County Co-op bill is actually for hay bales and hay for that area to keep the
Erosion.
mud down.
Yeah.
Pro Mark provided the mulch for those.
Did you have a question?
I just, since this isn't something that was initially considered, where are you taking the money
Well,
from?
because town council has confirmed that we can take care of the fields as part of this project.
Okay.
And that's the consideration that Carol's asking. If
So it's
we-
coming from some contingency that we have?
Actually, it's coming from, if you remember, we talked about going to MSBA and asking them to take the change order one, which was the $1,750,000.
Okay,
And take the $239,000 for monitoring,
yeah,
and round the 239 up to 300,000, because we knew there was gonna be other things.
okay,
So we rolled in the 300
Yep.
to the $1,750,000.
okay.
And we were able to convince MSBA to put those things all together as though that was part of the bid. What that did for us was, it left our contingency intact.
Okay.
Otherwise, they simply would have wiped out our contingency. We would have been going for the next 2 years with no contingency. So they were very reasonable in saying, you're right, we can't wipe out the contingency. You're $4 million under the budget to start off with, so that rolling that in makes all the sense in the world. And by rolling them in, we're still $2 million under the budget. So
Right.
they're working out the final, we've already sent in, and I think
Okay.
we made a comment last time around as to what it did to what this whole arrangement and the coming under the budget and rolling this thing in, what it was doing to Georgetown share, and Georgetown share came down considerably, over $1 million.
Right, yeah, it's
even with all the
below
stuff
what
in
the
there.
target was,
Exactly.
yeah. Yep.
And what we're doing is we're just waiting for them, because we sent that in back a month and a half ago, and we're waiting back for them to come back and say fine, and once they say fine, we can roll everything into ProPay, and then we're off and running. But they were very reasonable,
Okay,
and we're
great.
comfortable
Yeah.
that we've got.
Yeah, that worked out very well for us.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the last and most important one is our contract extension. Is it considered an extension or just?
What, the
That's great.
requisition for
Is it a-
builders?
yeah.
Just the requisition,
Normal
monthly
Just a
requisition.
requisition,
It's a
okay.
monthly requisition, yeah.
For $1,016,572.20. And all of these total $1,184,782, I'm sorry, $1,184,782.78.
Oh, 48 cents.
Well, I could have typed something in, so do check
I'll
that.
check 'em.
Okay. I did do the math on the Excel program, so I didn't add it myself.
Check it.
All right, so I will send these around.
We can take a vote.
Yes, yes. I'm gonna send these around in this packet, so just try and when you sign them, keep them together, okay? So, all in favor
We need a
of
motion.
approved,
We need a
oh, would you, anyone like to make a
I'll
motion?
Make a motion.
I haven't cheered in a while.
Second.
I'll make a motion to approve the invoices as stated. For $1,184,782.78. Or 48 cents.
Any discussion?
So the whole total's 1 million what?
$1,184,782.78.
I found it, you're right. I apologize. 30 cents I dropped.
Okay. Well,
Chuck, I would have bet on you over Ally.
Yeah, I know. Well, listen, I spent
I know what
4
our numbers
hours
are.
doing this. I was
Glasses,
typing
so,
carefully. No, I could certainly have
You got it.
transposed
Right on the money,
something.
I dropped 30 cents off of DRA's.
I was
just
very,
didn't think it was worth it.
very careful. All
I
right,
keep telling them to round down.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. Next on the agenda, I'm gonna move the agenda around a little bit because the couple of items we have, I think would work better. Carl, I'm gonna ask you if you can talk about the field designs
Mhm.
first.
Okay. As part of the whole soil issue, as you recall,
Sean, do you wanna come over here so you can see?
yeah, sorry, Sean, I'll turn my back on you here.
Sean, just sit in that chair, that's fine. No one's there.
Part of the
So
soil
more comfortable,
management
too.
plan, remember, we wanted to keep the soil on site, and so the contractor has been filling this area over here, let's call it north is up on this, so it's the northeast field, which originally wasn't in the scope. Remember, our scope sort of stopped from here down. Here's the existing school, the turnaround in front of the school. We weren't really touching the north fields at all, but because this north field was low, it provided that opportunity to lose a lot of the material in that area and bring it up. And they've been doing that. If you go out there today, it's come up considerably, and they've basically started at the edge of the clearing, come back, which is coincidentally sort of the edge of the buffer zone too, to the Pembroke down below, and started filling up there. You know, there's not a retaining wall, not a vertical wall, but a slope there to create a level plateau. And the idea is,
But what's the slope from the bottom line, Carl, to the top of the,
how much is that?
yeah, what's that? This is all from the artificial.
These are, I'm trying to think, these are 1 foot contours, I think, George. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's about 8 feet of fill there. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
8 feet over,
yeah.
uh,
It's about
8 feet high, but and what's the distance?
It's about a 3 to 1 slope,
Okay.
I think, right now, the way it's out there. And this is what's being proposed. This isn't existing conditions.
Oh.
It's in process.
Right.
Literally, you know, they've been actively moving material here. They're also, there are other areas on site too that they're gonna be able to lose some as well.
But, so you don't need a
So-
big enough slope on the other side, son, huh?
It's more gradual in there, basically because we're looking at the geometry of this whole area here as to what can work out in terms of the fields. But the idea is ultimately, and we're trying to refine the calculations more precisely, is to bring this area up to be the same as these areas when it's all said and done. And we still need to cap these areas too. So right now, they're anticipating bringing this up just enough to cap it without having to strip the topsoil there. So they'd be adding like 18 inches here of clean material, off-site material, and that would line up more or less with this field here. And to help with drainage, just to ease any concerns that that, you know, somehow we're changing the drainage pattern, we'd actually slope this back. So it's coming back towards here, we'd capture it in a swale or a French drain, and eventually bring it back. We have an underground drainage structure in this parking lot here, so that any excess that's not absorbed in the, you know, directly into the land, would travel down there and be recharged.
And go-
So
would
no
it go-
further.
Would
And
it be
then
recharged or
ultimately-
go, yeah, okay.
Yeah, ultimately, that goes into
Right.
this one here, and ultimately that goes into this wetland here. Right, so it's basically sloping back this way, not adding anything more down the hill.
How big of a swale are you talking about?
Well, we're looking at, this is one of the issues, and I'm glad someone's here. It may be more than baseball, it may be GAA if they're into soccer or field hockey or lacrosse wants to think about too, but, you know, initially when we conceived of this, and I think maybe other people, we thought, oh, we're gonna end up with one
Right.
nice big level plateau here, we'll have flexibility in how to lay out the fields. That's true to a certain extent, except there are light poles here, and there's also a backstop here. Those things don't move, and so they're kind of permanent, and you can't lay out a soccer field this way, you know, with light poles in the middle or a backstop there. So in essence, we still end up with a distinct field here, you know, this is one common area with no obstructions and level, just as it is today. But in essence, we'd end up with what we have today. And we'd gain a little area here because we're filling, you know, some of the low spot next to it. But essentially, one of the issues is if we, you know, keep this layout, we still have, you know, the Little League field here with softball field and a softball field, a backstop here, a backstop here. We're reorienting this because it's better for sight lines with the sun and all here. But we have light poles here too, so it does separate these fields. It would be a significant cost impact to move those, and you'd still end up with a, you know, a backstop here that somewhat limits your ability to lay out a field across there, but you might be able to gain something there. So that's one of our concerns. So if we do keep the light poles there, then it wouldn't hurt to have a swale there in the, you know, to pick up surface runoff. If we do want to try to achieve a level plateau, then we'd also want to move those light poles and maybe think about the layout a little differently, and maybe even need to, you know, fill a slightly greater area horizontally, you know, to do that. But that's going to come at a greater price tag to do that.
Is this the type of swale that water could feasibly collect and stay, sit?
You know, generally they're designed so they have a slope to them, or they have plants and subsurface material that absorbs the water. So it doesn't have standing water in it usually, but it does, you know, generally have, you know, some plant growth in it. You know, we have them here,
Right.
you know.
So
in-
how
in
deep are we
various
talking?
places.
I'm just worried about kids tripping and,
Oh, yeah, it
on
would
that
be
kind of
designed so
thing.
it's sort of rolling. It's not gonna be a sharp depression that you twist your ankle in. It would be sort of a rolling.
how deep
You
are we
know,
talking?
I
1
don't
feet,
know.
2
I think
feet?
that
You
was
know,
just a couple
Show
feet.
it maybe 18
Okay.
inches or something?
Okay,
Yeah, that's
so
very
Something like
minimal.
that.
we're not
It'll
talking
vary
about
'cause
a
it's gonna
deep.
slope.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
That's
how
what
do
I
you,
was
how do you
thinking.
walk from one field to the other?
There still would be a path. You know, we'd want it, for accessibility reasons, create an accessible path, meaning it's not any steeper than 5%, but here it's gonna be relatively flat now, that would connect, you know, along there. So there would be a spot, and if we need to, have a under drain, you know, from that swale over to this area here. So you're not crossing the swale to get to that field.
So you're gonna have any pipes there?
Um,
How is it gonna get that
right.
far over?
I don't know how far they'd take the swale till. I think they'd stop here and then have a pipe here. To
There.
here. Yes, there's
They're
already,
connecting it from there
we
to
already
there.
own a structure here underground, under the parking lot, you know, and they'd add a pipe from here to there.
What's the plan as far as cutting out planting grass and cutting out fields and?
You know, right now, the thought would be that we'd make the quality of this equal to the quality of this. So this is all new turf here, you know, grass, turf, and with an irrigation system in it, that we would think you'd want this to be comparable.
Yeah, the other thing I would caution, Kyle, is remember that backfield is, we know it's gonna be more unstable, so we've always said that backfield would be
Yeah.
grass.
Yeah,
You can't count on that backfield being as stable as the 2 fields up above.
Yeah,
Because there's,
So we'll
there's, you know,
require a
there's
little
8,
bit
10
more.
feet
we're
of
we're
loam
gonna
there,
add
so
a,
that
you know,
moves
in
around
the
more than the upper
capping,
fields do, so you'll have a field, may not be quite as stable as the other
in the
fields.
capping operation, Pat, we're required to put a separation layer. So if anyone in the future were to start digging, you know, you'd hit
Right.
something and you're not supposed to dig any further without checking. And what we intend to do in this area with this much fill is utilize a geotextile fabric
Yeah,
there that helps
increase it so it
stabilize.
helps
But you
stabilize
still
the
may
whole
get
thing.
some uneven settlement
Yeah.
there. This field particularly where, you know, having that much fill, some of it being organic, is gonna break down in the future, and you'll get little depressions that need to be filled, need to be attended to on an annual basis, probably. But the geotextile fabric will help, minimize that.
What kind of plantings are you gonna do to maintain the slope in the back?
I'm not sure what they intend here. What we've got in other places is similar, George, is like a meadow mix. So it's wild, you only mow it like once a year. It's not grass.
But
You
will-
don't have to run a mower on it.
But what will hold the slope
Yes,
from erosion
yeah.
right
Well,
away?
and plus it would be at an angle of repose that it's natural. So you're really just trying to prevent erosion. But, you know, from a structural point of view, it's stable, naturally, the angle of repose of the soil.
It'd be at least 2 to 1 and probably 3 to 1, you
Yeah.
know.
You're not gonna put any rocks there or anything?
No, we
to-
don't
to make
anticipate
sure.
that, Tilly, no.
But you did that over here, didn't you?
Yeah, because we had very little opportunity. We're close to the wetland and close to the property line. But where we can, we'd rather grade it out and just plant the slope. And that's what they intend to do on the edges there. And we'd have a fence on top of the slope so any balls don't roll down the hill, that kind of thing.
While you're doing that, are you going to put a cover on top of this dirt that's so
Yes.
loose?
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere there'd
So
be
far, I
a
haven't
new
seen
cap.
a cover.
Oh, they haven't got to
No,
the final
there's no
grade yet.
covering going on yet. There's
Actually,
no
if you
fill
walk,
coming in yet.
if you
Yeah.
walk
Oh, I'm
out
sorry,
there right
by
now.
cover you mean to keep the dust down?
Yes.
When
Oh,
they,
yeah,
when they
yeah,
get to an area or a height that's sort of close to final grading, then
Uh-huh.
they have this spray that they're gonna put on it.
Uh-huh.
Tactifier, it's called. It's organic, it breaks down after a while, but it holds the dust down. It keeps it from eroding. Well, it's gonna be mostly flat anyways, but on the slopes. And on the slopes here too, they've used some of the grindings. They're not exactly wood chips, but from the stump grindings that we also didn't wanna bring off-site. They're utilizing those on the slope as well. But they will use a spray that's, it's almost like hydroseeding, I guess, that they call
And
Tactifier.
that'll prevent any dust from coming?
Right, right.
From the wind?
Yes,
No?
yes.
Good.
And their goal is to, once, you know, to attack this and get this done, as soon as we get the okay from the Concom and we've established a budget for this, they wanna get the fills all in place and get the cover material, the clean cover material over that whole area, so that's, we can seed it, you know, and then go from there. So that's, they wanna get that done ASAP.
And the schedule for us involves not only finishing the proposed design here, but then meeting with Conservation Commission too. Just because we're close to the buffer, we may even be into the buffer a little bit, just to make the grades and the alignment work out best. We already have talked with Steve Szymski and had a site walk with him, with our landscape architect, and
Well, you're changing the hydrology too, so
a
so
bit,
you
yeah.
need to run
you
a
know, and so that's gonna be part of the process, but if all that goes smoothly, and we gotta get a price, because we do have a price for filling this as part of that change order number 1, but we don't have a price for doing this work here. If we can get all that approved, they may be able to attack this pretty quickly this spring. They'd have to, you know, work it and get grass in, I'm not sure, they haven't really looked downstream as to when it would actually be available for play, but they may be able to start construction later this spring if all those things fall into line.
So,
Excuse me,
oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You mentioned irrigation on both those fields. Is that something that's already built into your budget?
Well, we haven't
There is
constructed
no
the
budget
budget.
yet,
That-
because this is
that's
extra
the
work
next step.
completely.
It's
you
built
know.
in the
Wanted-
the other field has a
Yes.
irrigation.
It's already here, and we do own 2 wells as part of the contract already. And it'd be a question, you know, if the capacity of that as to if it can serve the whole thing, that's the goal, is that we develop wells that, I don't mean literally develop, but I mean that we construct wells that have enough capacity that they can handle the entire area eventually, so.
Well, it
And
was-
we
it was
know
condi-
we're losing the little bit of irrigation that is in the, I think it's just in the infield here, right?
Infield and outfield.
Does it go all the way to the outfield,
Mhm.
beyond? you know, just because they're driving trucks over it and we're gonna be burying it, it's not gonna be salvageable. We understand, you know, that we'd wanna recreate at least that, but, you know.
There's still a water source that we put in there to,
Yeah, is that connected to the
That's
hydrant
town
that's here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that hydrant is staying, but, you know, ultimately, if we can get it onto a well, that would be that much better, I think, for the town. Yes,
Well, I was just gonna bring that up, that's actually in the Concom original conditions.
Yes, yes.
That the hydrant connection be disconnected.
Once the well is installed, that we reconnect this irrigation to it. They
Provided.
asked us to do that as
Provided.
part of the order of conditions.
Right.
So,
So so moving forward, just like, when are we planning to go before Concom? Do we have an estimated
The-
timeframe that we're gonna try to
I
target?
think the sequence we would anticipate right now, Michelle, is that we get the design done to a level to present to you as a final at the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks.
28th.
And
Yeah.
then submit to Conservation Commission then. And at
Okay.
the same time, again, depending if we feel reasonably confident, we could be giving it to the contractor for pricing, and maybe
Right.
those two things happen simultaneously. And then it might be, when's the next meeting after that? I don't know. It might
March
be
11th.
March 11th meeting,
Yeah.
that we'd be ready to come back to you with a price and approval from Conservation.
Okay, so just, you know, just from a field perspective, so assuming everything goes according to the way that we're hoping, you know, they could potentially do the work like in the spring, you know, but then realistically, the fields probably wouldn't be playable until.
Yeah, you gotta let the
following
grass
spring
grow in
is-
the
fall.
you know.
Goal would be to try and have it,
through
you know,
the fall.
seeded and ready the end of
So-
June, and then
yeah.
you'd wanna wait a year.
Right.
is there any reason why it wouldn't be done for 2015?
For the spring of 2015?
Right.
No, at this point, it certainly looks doable. I don't know, Pat, anything
Is
you're.
it spring of 15? Spring? Well, I mean, you'd be obviously a little bit under the 1 year you'd like to see. I mean, that 1 year is not necessarily, you know,
Yeah,
the
if for
end of
some
the
reason
world.
they don't start
You
till
may
the
have a very
summer
good
of
growing season and so
2014.
forth, and you might find that in the spring it will be playable, you know, so.
Right.
Certainly not before
But
the spring of 15.
It's seeded, not turf rolled.
Yeah,
Well,
one,
it'll, again,
Well,
it'll be,
I was gonna
It'll
say,
be-
Stu,
we haven't
one
priced anything
option,
yet. It'll be whatever, you know, whatever you decide you wanna get priced up.
one
get
option
priced up.
could be to put turf down.
Yeah.
If there is an irrigation system, that's great, you know, it gets it growing, gets it in place sooner. You know, we could evaluate the difference in cost between, you know, hydroseeding versus, you know, rolling out sod. You know, there might be an advantage if time is of the essence here.
It's a substantial extra, but, I mean, it'd be
Right.
playable in the fall of
Right.
14.
You know,
so.
it might be, you know, you do one field or something
Yeah.
inside, and
Mhm.
let the other be hydroseed too, that's a possibility.
Right, and I think we should just clarify, just so everybody's clear on where we are, just as far as who's paying what and what we've started to absorb, because prior to this, we weren't touching the fields. Okay, so when everything came up with the arsenic and everything, and just because it's cost effective to keep some of the soil here, I think it was at the Board of Selectmen meeting and school committee meeting that, right, wasn't it, that, at that
Yeah.
meeting?
Yep.
That they said, you know, so let's start doing the design work, we'll put it back to the building committee project. So luckily, we do have the money to do that, so
Very
all this design, all this stuff is being absorbed within the Pembroke project.
Great.
What, and that is it, as far as what is going to happen with the project once we get past design, so whether it's hydroseed, sod, that is money that right now is not accounted for by anybody. So,
But we will have irrigation in all three.
That would be our
That's our
recommendation, Sue, if we're gonna redo these fields.
That's not part of,
You
That's
really,
or
not-
is that part
it-
of where we're
you
going?
really
the o-
should.
my understanding is the only thing that is now within our budget is to get to the, basically the schematic design, right? Is that the right word? Schematic design, sort of what those fields are going to look like, just like we did with the school. We got to the schematic design, now we're in construction. So when we get to the quote-unquote construction phase, when they start doing the landscaping and whatever you
Yeah,
call
you'll
it,
need to
doing
take
the
another
sleeves.
vote.
Right, there's
on-
gonna be another set of money that's gonna come into play, okay? So once everybody says, yep, this is the design we want, then there's gonna be a cost to that. That cost right now is, we don't know what it is, and we don't know who's gonna pay for it.
But we are gonna replace the irrigation that we're damaging, what the trucks are damaging now. No?
I don't
That's
think
not
so.
within.
I think that's no more than fair. You know, it's the trucks that
Well,
are doing
I
it.
mean, we know it can't stay the way it is, so.
Right.
something's gotta be done here. We gotta cap this eventually, just like all the other soil too.
Right.
So we're gonna do the
It's
rough
not-
cap and
Yeah.
the separation and everything on this phase. And then the second phase would
Well,
be,
right now, we're only capping this as part of the
Right.
change order,
Yeah,
so
that's
we
right.
need to get a
Right.
price
Okay.
to do the rest
Oh,
of it.
okay,
That's
gotcha.
what Michelle
That's what
said.
I'm-
Right,
okay.
right.
We need to get a price to do the rest of this.
as far as covering it,
Yes, covering it, putting
Separation,
on grass,
covering
it.
sod, and
Yeah.
irrigating,
Yeah.
you know, all that. So-
gotcha.
And seeding, wouldn't it be the better time, would be the fall to seed? Not the spring?
It generally is, but you can't wait that long, you know, when you wanna get
We don't wanna
these-
wait 6
these
You wanna
months.
go
things-
Yeah, the
for-
normal
If
specs
there is
say,
irrigation, at least it's being watered.
Right, and if you have
carefully.
irrigation, that makes a big difference.
the normal spec usually,
Yeah.
they give you the latitude of doing it in, May, June, or September, October.
Yeah,
Understanding that September, October is a little bit better, but again, as long as you keep it, you keep it watered and whatnot, it can come along. I mean, we planted in July, you need a lot of water to do that, it's not favorable, but sometimes you're forced to do that.
Well, we're putting in we're also putting in a lead type
oh,
system.
yeah.
Isn't that right, Kyle? We're putting in a lead type irrigation system where, I mean,
Yes,
they
it
can
needs to be
control the amount of
commissioned.
sprinkler heads and all that.
Yeah, and make sure that you don't have overspray or overlapping areas, or you're not watering the driveway, and that the water's just going where it's needed, right, so we have a commissioned
That's why we were
irrigation
hoping
system.
you guys would hold off and put in this irrigation system in, because it was gonna use public water supply, which, harms our.
We were led to believe that, well, none of us really thought we were gonna be in
Right.
this
Right.
situation, but
Right.
we were also thinking, one is now and the other is, 3 years from now, so.
Mhm.
So that's why we could, spent the money on that. So really, there's no guarantee of anything other than you're gonna have like one level area.
That's the plan. Again, there's another step involved here to get it priced and to get it
Right.
approved to
Mhm.
move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure as a town, we'll figure out a way.
It's
to
just
be
a
scaled.
process.
But I just want everybody to know right now where we are in the process. Everybody to be clear of, what has been absorbed by this project, where we are with this project, and then what the next steps will be. Because obviously we'll wanna work in conjunction with, baseball, all of GAA,
Sure.
and stuff, get their input.
So you
Actually, do you think it would be worth, so, say we see more of a design on this in 2 weeks, do you think it would be worth holding a separate meeting with like just GAA? Or even inviting them to that meeting?
Yeah, I
just
think
to get,
so.
to get all the
Mhm.
sports involved, to say, what about if they all want those lights removed, or, that's not, we're not experts in that,
Sure.
That was, that'd be something we'd recommend within the next week or so, just
Well,
based
that's,
on.
I mean,
Before it's
baseball, while that's important for baseball, lacrosse uses that, soccer uses that,
right,
flag football uses that, so.
right. And when we've been doing this project, we're trying to figure out what is best for the town. So obviously we're not looking to hurt any of the sports, but, maybe the collaboration with everybody to come up with what they think will be the best solution. So would it be?
We had a meeting like that to decide, about
Right,
what
we
kind of
did,
fields,
like 2,
replace
3
the
years ago,
school,
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So, so knowing that our timing is kind of tight, do you think we should invite them to our meeting on the 28th, or hold a separate meeting?
It'd probably be nice to hold a
Ideally.
separate meeting
I mean,
prior to that.
Prior?
Yeah.
So that
I
would be
know
next
it's
week.
quick notice, I know,
That would be next week.
next week, yeah, if we could.
Because what would be important is on the 28th, we would establish,
Decision.
obviously, we know we're gonna price up the grading, and we're gonna price up the loam, and obviously the seating. What would be nice to know is what else the committee would like in the way of alternates, because we can go to the contractor,
Right,
and, you wanna price up 1 or 2 fields with sod, we can do that.
yep,
You want, anything else you wanna do, the irrigation can be priced separately,
yep.
and then you'll have it laid in front of you. The
So we
base
can have a
number's gonna
base
be
with
X.
all the alternates and
And then
decide
you'll
what.
have, then you'll have alternates, and you can decide from there exactly, based on what the numbers look like, and then decide what you wanna do.
Yeah.
And then that direction would go into, obviously, getting it off to the contractor after the 28th, and it's working in parallel with the item would be submitted to Concom while the contractor's pricing things up, and that would tend to expedite things,
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
you know?
Why don't we pick a night next week? Does that work?
Well, we just see when they can come up.
Yeah, we'd have to check with Doug Morse, our landscape architect, he'd be a key guy to
All
be
right,
there.
well, why don't you give us
But-
some Why don't you give us a couple of alternative dates
And,
tomorrow?
we could do it at the school maybe?
Yeah, we can do it right at Pembroke again.
And what times work well for GA?
These times.
7?
7. Sean, what's, with losing these fields this fall, I mean this spring and everything, you guys have a contingency plan in place or getting one formulated
Yeah,
for getting
our
sports?
our T-ball will play at the bandstand area at American Legion.
Okay.
Our second and third grades are gonna have to figure out playing at open times at the
Emailed
JV
us.
Did
Right
I
now.
just email?
Upper
softball
fields.
field.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our fourth and
Next Tuesday, the 21st.
fourth and
maybe.
third and fourth grade rather. First and second will be playing at JV softball. The third and fourth grade, they won't have any home games. They'll all be played in the other towns.
Okay.
So
In practice, they have places to work?
that's tough in this town anyway. So
Okay.
it's
Nobody
Yeah,
plays
losing
in the
these three
backyard
fields is-
anymore, huh?
no, losing these three fields is, I mean,
It's huge.
as you can imagine, it's not only kind of hurting us. It's, I mean, soccer
Would help
plays
if we had
there.
our park done already, which is
Sure.
3 years dragging.
Plus with the turf project starting, you know, you're
Yeah.
losing
Another field.
fields
Right,
there, and
Yeah.
so it's gonna be,
It's
you
a
know,
perfect storm
tough
for
year.
it.
It is, because we had this conversation when we were deciding where to put the school.
Did you ever discuss like renting out some others, like hey, Bucksford's got loads of fields. Do you ever think of leasing out a field next door?
You know, the towns in our interleague, they've been really great about agreeing to allow us to play all our games at those fields. So for, particularly the third and fourth grade is gonna be hit the hardest, because they have to play in a diamond. They can't just play in a patch of grass somewhere where the T-ball in the first and second grade, we can make do as long as we find open space.
Yeah.
But the third and fourth grade, our minor league is more tricky, because you can't play just on a patch of grass. You got to play in a diamond with a backstop and a mound, and
Sure.
um,
I know all about it. My husband was the commissioner.
So
Many
is
years.
Many years.
so I think for us, I mean, we've resolved the fact that we're not going to have fields this year, but we're concerned, is this going to be a 2-year struggle? And also what's going to be there when we do have access? Is it just going to be a patch of open space that we have to figure out, or is that something that's you're going to help us get those fields going again?
Just to be cynical, I would say have a plan on 2 years of Plan B.
Yeah, well, our plan will be the same plan we have this year. but
Yeah,
it's not-
no, but I mean,
not
just to be safe, you know what I mean? I would overplan that, and then anything that gets done here is gravy.
Mhm.
So we're talking about that second phase of the other 2 fields, that pricing and everything. We're basically just gonna cap it, separate, cap it, and then seed it or whatever, and that's basically
Yeah, one
that
question
second
would-
phase, but it's not necessarily
would
gonna be
involve
set up with diamonds
the
and everything.
backstop. No, it would involve diamonds, infield dirt.
It
you
would,
know.
so it'd be fully
Sure.
fully
Yeah,
finished at that point.
fields.
Okay,
You know, new players' benches, you have to deal with the backstops and things like that. I don't know literally whether we can just bury them if we're gonna come up, that
yeah,
18 inches.
dimension or not.
Yep.
So,
okay.
we'd look at all that too.
So by the time we really get there, we'll have full functioning
Right.
fields
right.
at that point, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just be
Yeah.
real conservative on,
Sure.
on that.
Well, there's really no sense in you having this other meeting until you have the costs, I would think.
I wouldn't think so. I mean,
Yeah, let's
if you
get the costs
Well,
first.
the issue to us,
Rather than
Tilly,
pie in
would
the
be
sky
about
stuff.
the light
The
poles.
light
Making
Well,
decisions.
we
Do
need,
you
we
wanna
need,
move
to- we need a
poles? Do you
decision
want,
on what
Yeah.
people
That's-
would like to
that's a
see
key
for the
one.
plan.
And anything else.
Because-
There may be concerns, like we
Right.
say, that beyond baseball, that if we can get the GA there, maybe the high school athletic director and.
Well,
you
the
know,
the poles would probably the electric department put in. I don't know, but I'm guessing.
They did.
So maybe you have to coordinate with them on what they could do for you.
I know, but
But has
we
something
can't,
like what we
until
need
we
to
know,
plan.
until we know what design people want
Yeah.
for the town, we can't do a price.
Yeah, I would
So
say it's
we
important,
we do want input
We'd like
from
to,
all
Get
the
all
athletic people
stakeholders in here
on
and
what they would like to see.
have a discussion.
And then we can do, like Pat said, we can do a base price and say, okay,
Yeah.
you know, this is with grass, whatever.
Yeah.
And then if you want, you know, if we want
Sod.
sod, or if you want the lights moved, and, you know, those can all be extras, and then we can pick and choose
Okay.
what we want for the extras.
And irrigation.
Based on, yeah, and irrigation can be a
Irrigation,
separate
yeah,
price, and
yeah.
then we can pick and choose what we think
Exactly.
is the most important,
Yeah.
and then work backwards that way from a cost perspective.
But the
Right,
cost
that-
for the landscaper is coming out of our budget for this
Yes.
meeting, and
Mhm.
DAR and all, so we're paying,
I know.
you know.
Right.
That swale
But
you
that's-
mentioned, is that necessary because of the area around there, or, I mean, is
Well,
there?
an alternative is to have sort of a French drain where the ground is level, but underneath the ground is a trough, in essence.
And it'd have to work
that
around.
collects. And you can play over that, but generally that is in the boundary of and it is sort of a low spot, but not a swale. There, so there are other ways to deal with it.
It's a lot more piping than what you would
Mm-hmm.
do for a swale, you know, when you slope the grade to one pipe versus having the whole field have an under drain,
Right.
which are very typical in high school fields these days.
But if you can get away with no swale, maybe that whole space could be reconfigured to where you're able to take advantage of more of the space.
That's what we
Right.
could talk about at the
Right.
meeting, as to what those
That's an option.
possibilities are. Because you remember, you got the backstops you have to deal with too, though, the kind of impediments to being wide open, and the light poles, so. But that's, just what we would
Alright.
talk about.
All right, we'll send an email tomorrow to GAA
Yeah.
and
Did you
ask
give
them
us
to
potential dates
coordinate
that could
with,
work?
I just emailed
All
Doug,
the
we're gonna see it
sports.
Tuesday
Ne-
night.
A
next
week from tonight?
the
Yeah.
athletic
That's what
director
we're aiming for.
A
We'll
week
let you
from
know.
tonight would be our
Next-
first
if it
choice.
doesn't work.
Next Tuesday?
Yeah,
next Tuesday,
at 7 at Pembroke.
and you'll invite
Warner Larson will be.
Warner Larson.
Yeah, I don't know, on the town side, Ellie, can you
Yeah,
invite the
I'll
appropriate
get in
people?
touch with the athletic director and see.
And
if he's
other
available.
GAA people? I don't know,
Yes.
if
I'll
Sean's just
go-
baseball?
Yeah, I'll go
Yeah,
through
I
the
can-
president and he'll,
Okay.
and Sean can.
Sure.
So
Who
you
is the
two are gonna
president
handle
now?
all the sports people?
Who is the president now of the GA?
Henry.
You'll handle all
I can
the,
send a note out. I mean, if that doesn't work, can we look at a different date?
Yes.
okay. So as soon as we get final confirmation, I'll shoot you
We'll
an
send
email.
Thanks very much.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So Sean, is there anything else, since you're on the agenda, that you would like to bring up?
No, I mean, certainly we can talk about it at the next meeting if there's anything else we think of, or,
Okay, great.
thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
For coming.
Yeah, really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks for putting it on the agenda, appreciate it.
Yeah, no, anytime. All right, we need to approve transfer of the testing. We changed testing firms from,
I'm gonna just pass this around here
you
real
have
quick.
something? All
Yeah,
right.
it covers both the fire protection and the testing situation.
So as you all understand that we had to go out to bid again because the company
Pass those
that
around.
Is this the
Um,
protest?
sing-
placed
sheet.
the bid protested it, and the protest went in their
Swing
favor.
those around
So we
there.
have to resubmit, not resubmit, we have to
Yeah, we'll just.
re-advertise.
These are fancy
Great.
paper clips.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are cool.
I had sent this around already,
This
but
is cool.
just to reiterate, PSI was the original successful proposer for the construction testing, and the construction testing is, breaking concrete cylinders, inspecting rebars, testing the steel, doing compaction tests on the soil. It's completely separate from the monitoring we're doing. This is actually construction testing that's done on every job. It's required by code. They were 37,428. They actually, when they learned that they had to have 40-hour OSHA-approved people, they told us they were okay. They told Chuck they were okay. As it turned out, they actually went up and did a couple of days, and then they realized when they went back in, they couldn't meet the requirements, and they refused to do it. So we had to move to the second proposer, which is UTS of Massachusetts, for $44,224 for an additional $6,796. Understanding that it was within the 25, we sent this out. There was a meeting, and there was a vote taken to approve the 6796. I think everybody agreed on it. What we need to do just is to verify that we're rescinding PSI and going with UTS of Massachusetts, just to have a contract award for the $44,224. The difference has already been taken care of in the vote that you already took.
All right, so we need to
you can actually indicate that you're acknowledging that PSI has requested withdrawal for the 37,428, and that you're allowing it, and that the 44,224 has been awarded to UTS.
Okay.
Question, so PSI withdrew.
Yeah.
They didn't think they didn't want to rebid at all? They didn't,
They weren't
Well,
qualified.
this is-
There's no rebidding involved, yeah, they, basically, if you remember,
Because of the
this was-
change.
Yeah, this was done prior to going through the
Right.
issue that we had with the soil. So we distributed that to everybody else, they looked at it, and that's when they ended up withdrawing.
okay.
UTS had no problem
And
with
they
it.
had won the bid initially?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right, do we need a formal vote on this then?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I'll make so the motion is that we would like to accept UTS's bid for $44,224 and acknowledge that PSI has withdrawn
Right,
voluntarily.
right.
So moved.
Second.
Any
How's that
other-
for efficient?
Perfect. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And while it's on the same sheet, the fire protection situation,
Sure.
it took unfortunately, it took an awful long time for the AG's office to direct that we rebid the fire protection. They had a hearing, then they had a second hearing, then they requested more information, then it took a very long time for them to come back and say, we hereby direct that you rebid the job.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say direct, they actually make recommendations, because they're not a legal body, but they pass judgment on all of the bid protests and everything else, and you're in good stead if you follow their directives. So they said rebid it, so again, like I said, we had to scramble around, and DRA has put the packet together. We actually have a little pre-bid conference with the 4 bidders. The good news is that we didn't have to re-advertise, we didn't have to pre-qualify, so we got rid of about a month and a half worth of that effort, because they were already pre-qualified. So we just notified everybody else, said, pick up your documents, and there's a pre-bid tomorrow, and the bids will be due, I think it's next week. So hopefully at that point, we will have a fire protection contractor on board, presumably at more money than the low guy was, because the whole idea of this protest was that they protested that the low guy didn't have enough of the scope, and that's what took so long for them to determine. So we think that now that we filled in the scope based on the director from the AG, we think the numbers are gonna come in more money.
Was that scope an issue because there was a gap between where somebody was gonna connect water and not?
Well, I'm
Is
gonna
that
let
sort of
me
where-
let
where we had been
Kyle
before?
explain.
I
It was a
thought- I
pretty
vaguely
complex
recall something
situation.
about
And we
that.
don't have the south
Yeah.
side.
You're on the south side?
No,
I
we
thought
didn't bring
so.
it.
Sorry, I thought we had the plans too, but, basically, if you continue this driveway on up, the school is here. The water, incoming water for the project currently, comes to here now.
Right.
The scope of work, involves extending the water line, not only up to the school, but then
But it's
down the
looping
access
back,
drive
right?
too,
Okay.
back to Elm Street.
Yep.
And then it loops around the school as well.
On the backside?
On the backside, and the
Oh.
incoming water service to the building is actually on the backside.
Oh, okay,
At some point before it enters the building, the water line splits.
okay.
One line is dedicated for the sprinkler system in the building, fire protection, and the other is domestic water.
Gotcha.
There was confusion as to who owned that loop of water
backside.
line around the building.
Okay.
And you can see by the time it took and the number of hearings, it wasn't clear even to the Attorney General, and so
Okay.
in the end, that's why she said,
Yeah,
please
redo it.
rebid it. And
Okay.
it appears, by the numbers, as Pat says, that the low bidder didn't include that water loop around the building.
Okay.
Freight did not include that
But
water
all the
line
others
around the
did.
building, but the second guy did.
Okay.
And
Are there
so-
4 guys that bid on it or just 2?
3 bid on it, one didn't.
3 out of the 4 bid on it.
Um,
We're hoping we get all 4 this time.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So they can come back to the table then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the original bid? How much was it
It was
for?
around 400,000.
$399.
There was a $100,000 difference between the
Yeah,
first
and
and
the
the
second
second.
bidder
and
was
there
about
300
$100,000
over
more.
the second.
And then the
Yeah.
third bidder was
Yeah.
another
So we're looking at a
300,000.
serious difference.
Right.
There was a substantial difference, yeah.
We have the
That's a big gap.
opportunity here, though.
Hello.
We have the opportunity, that loop that goes around the building technically does not have to be installed by a fire protection contractor. It could be installed by the site contractor who's doing the rest of the water line work. And so we are gonna get an alternative price from the general contractor to do that work, and it may come in lower
Oh,
than the
okay.
sprinkler contractor's price.
So you'll have them bid two ways,
Yes.
with and
With
without?
an alternate.
Fire protection guy's gonna
Exactly.
bid a deduct to take it out, and the
Yep.
general contractor's gonna give us a price, and if we can save money doing that.
Yeah, okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, great. All right, so we need to discuss or have an update on the contract status?
I'm gonna just give you a quick rundown, it's pretty straightforward, and then I'll let Chuck go through the dollars and the budget and so forth, but, actually, the contractor's been, pretty cooperative, and he's got 3 ground heating machines out there, and again, like I said, they're working 6 days a week, which means obviously, Green Seal is, and we are also, and you'll see the differences in the invoices when we go forward, but, that's gonna pay big dividends to get the thing back on board. If you remember correctly, we paid him extra money to work the 6 days to get this thing condensed and get done at the same time, so we could have the school ready. And right now, they're making progress. The foundations are going in, steel is scheduled to start, erection is starting early in February. They're fabricating now, there's a lot of fabrication going on. And if you look at the overall schedule, it looks like steel's looking to be completed sometime in June, which is a
All of it?
substantial jump. All of the steel erection by the end of June.
Great.
And at that time, there'll be some overlapping. What'll happen is, once the steel is up on one side, obviously it'll be up in advance, they can start pouring floor slabs
Yeah.
sometime in April. So it's gonna really start really moving along, and once those slabs are up, the building starts to really take shape. So they've got a real good jump. There's been a lot of oversight and a lot of discussions about protecting concrete and blankets and covering and making sure all those things are in place, and that's an ongoing issue every week. But again, like I said, everything is moving fine. The dirt is being moved into the respective locations, and there's a lot of it going into the old septic system location. And that's where they chose to pump the existing septic tank, so they could take out the leach field,
Right,
because that's where the majority of fill that we're gonna be using on site is
putting
going.
in there, okay.
And they've had to be careful, because we can't place fill on top of frozen material, so, again, like I said, they've had to stagger their operation, get frost out, so that they're not putting material.
That's what the heaters and everything.
That's what the heaters are for. They're around the foundation. They may end up using them in those areas if they get to the point where they need to put fill there, but they brought another machine, and so things are going along well. Their mitigation measures, they've got the wheel washing machines, or the vehicle washing machine set up. Vehicles have to go through that as they go through. And again, like I said, they're continuing to move forward with the overall plan to get as much clean material, get a clean layer in as many areas as possible, so that they can obviously work in the clean, can bring regular trades in without having to go through the gymnastics. And also, it helps because it'll get us to a point where we can hopefully start to mitigate the amount of monitoring that's going on. We're hoping that by the time we get to next spring, that we'll have a lot of that site covered up, and it'll hopefully get to the point where we can eliminate or minimize some of the oversight that we're working on. So, things are going well. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I would let Chuck just walk
Just a
through.
quick one, on, for the cement pours and everything right now,
Yeah.
for all these, are they running into any issues with this, negative 20-degree weather we've been having? and-
No, when it's, the couple of days it was that cold,
Yeah,
even
there
though
was-
they had precautions and everything else, they didn't pour.
Okay,
I mean, you get to a certain point where
You could.
all the temporary heat and everything else, you get to the point where you're five below zero like we had a couple of days.
yeah,
You just realize that you wanna protect what you have. You
yeah,
keep-
it's just not worth it,
Yeah, you
right?
keep the blankets on the areas, and you keep the heat warming material, the equipment going, but you don't take any more chances and expose any more than you have to.
Okay, and they're
But-
feeling pretty
down-
comfortable with the
Oh, yeah.
weather and all that we're
Well,
not
I
running
mean,
into any issues and
Certainly
deterioration?
certain amounts of discomfort with the weather, but you work through it. I mean,
Yeah.
and they're moving along very well with the operation that they have. But down to, 15 degrees, 10, 15 degrees, it's manageable.
They're still okay?
With the equipment and the blankets and the equipment that they have, it's all manageable.
Chuck, I love seeing this picture, would love to see more. And I would like to be able to send some to the principals so they can find a way of sharing them, even just via email with the faculty. I think it would be nice to get a few pictures every week
Here's a great
that they can
photographer.
show.
Keep up with the number of pictures.
You know what I thought of when I saw this picture?
25, 30
I said I should have a disclaimer. this is not dust.
I know.
This is
There's
the-
a
this is
fog.
the foggy one.
yeah.
I don't want people looking and saying, my God, I thought they're supposed to minimize that. This is,
Yeah,
this
no,
is.
I
this
knew
is-
it was
That was
fog.
that foggy
Well,
moment.
you know, Ellie, on that topic, it might be an interesting idea to send them over to the record too, send some photos over the record as we get
Yeah.
them, and just, they can kind
Yeah.
of keep an ongoing, you know, kind of photo,
Yeah.
photo thing going on with it.
Yeah, if-
Once the erection stats, then you can see.
Yeah, I mean, but it's
But
cool to
even
see it
this,
here and then just have
exactly.
it progress, and then, you know, every
yeah.
week or
You-
two,
you
we
could
could
put
send a new
So
photo
could
or
you
two.
send us, like, ask him to pick out,
Actually,
I know, we do
so-
need a website.
Just to that point, Margaret and I we met with Donna and the school advisory committees last week or the week before, and, actually it must have been last week. And, we need to work on a timeline, so everybody has an idea of like what's going on and when. So, and then we are gonna try to get something or a little separate site off the school website
Yeah,
to put this.
sub-site.
So
That'd be
I
great.
will, Margaret and I are gonna work on that.
Good idea.
Our field representative,
list.
he takes, I'd say he takes anywhere between 10 and 15 photos a day.
At least.
And,
Yeah.
and again, he sends it in with his daily report, so there's
Great.
plenty of photos on a daily basis, you know, so.
Yeah, I think if we got maybe 10, 15 a week,
Yeah.
you know, just
We
of
can pick out the best
different
ones. We can
parts
Pick out the ones that are most interesting, you know.
Yeah.
that we can just keep sending around.
As we go forward, if you want, and I'll do this, it takes some time in the meeting, but I'm glad to do it, as we're doing the construction update. I have in the majority of my building committees, I will be able to provide slideshow. Put it up on your monitor, and you just ring them right through. You go real quick. It's pretty cool. 'Cause
Yeah.
those that
That's
don't
good.
get to walk the site.
Yeah.
can
It'll
That would be
reduce the
very nice.
temptation of people wanting to walk the site,
Well,
trespass.
I'll
Yeah,
tell
no,
you,
it could
I've
be-
been resisting, yeah.
I do it quite a bit, and because you're wired in this room, it's very
Yeah.
easy to do.
I would also
would be
like to
great.
share, I would love to do that, and I would like to share that I attended a couple of construction meetings during vacation. I wanted to see what was going on. It was very impressive. I mean, people are, you know what they have to do. They're talking about it with each other. They're working things out, and
Cooperative group.
yes.
Ellie she hung in right through the whole meeting, yeah. she
Two of
was-
them. I went to
yeah,
two meetings.
yeah.
How long
Most
were
people
they?
get the,
Couple hours.
I showed up at
Cabin
one
fever.
meeting
Her
at
eyes glaze
7:30 in the
over, right?
morning, and no one else did. Oh, no, I take that back. Chief Beardsley was there.
Yeah.
Oh, and Mike too. So the three Georgetown people showed up.
Were you over the
an
trailers
hour
over
early.
there?
Well, you
Yes.
asked to postpone the meeting later, but we
And
won't
for-
say who.
And forgot to let everyone else know.
There you go.
There you go.
But it was very interesting. I did, well, I couldn't walk it. I can't walk it, but
It was more
at some
staying
point would
up-
like to.
staying
How
up.
often are you there, Chuck?
Well, I'm there a lot, a couple days a week, I'm swinging by, I only live 5 to 10.
I know, you're there, you're
But
so
Peter's
close.
on site full time, and I'm up there, well, I'll be up there all day, pretty much all day tomorrow. And,
we're there on Wednesdays, we have a
Wednesday?
regular job meeting, and then, like I said, during the, and I stopped by Saturday, we're working Saturday, so Peter was there, I stopped by Saturday with Peter for a couple hours. And it's, it's not uncommon that Chuck and I will be there one other day, for part of the day, besides the day we're there on Wednesday,
drift by each other.
so,
Have you
just a
driven
matter
up
of
there, Tilly?
communicating.
Yeah, but not before the snow, I was there.
Yeah. So you've all seen the sign?
Our project sign is right up in front of
Yeah.
trailers that you make the turn into the, if you do the loop drive, the sign's
Right,
right there.
right.
I mean, you stop in our trailer anytime you want, we have a sign on the trailer there, so whenever you're up there, if you
You
wanna stop in.
serve coffee?
Sure does. There is, yeah.
There is, yeah.
Do you have a Keurig?
Yep.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, good. I wanted in that lousy coffee
Yeah.
that's burning for 2 weeks, you know.
Right there, you know.
Yeah, if you go in there, Peter's not there, because, again, Peter spends most of his time out in the job site where he
Yeah.
belongs, obviously monitoring things and so forth. But if you
Right.
go later in the afternoon, that's when he does his report, sends the photos, sends the reports.
Rates in the front.
Yeah, I think a photo thing would be great, on the school site
Yeah.
and send
Yeah.
it off
And-
to the
and
record and whatever.
Who handles the town website? Like, how would we find out if there was a way of just creating a spot where we could just load the photos?
Janet. Right? Janet is the one who deals with it.
Maybe
We're
she
gonna-
could
we're
do
gonna
some
do
on
it.
cable.
The committee was doing that, one thing.
I was doing it, and then, I kinda dumped I had all these, reports on there, and also, one day it just dumped. So I don't know how many pictures the virtual town hall website can handle. I
These pictures-
posted the agendas tonight and things like that in minutes, but
He's had to stop putting up excess.
Really?
We're gonna try to do it on the school website.
And maybe what
Yeah.
I can
No,
do is
they-
periodically email
And
something
do a
to
link,
Janet
right?
You
that
could
she
just
could
link it
use
to
on the
Google.
table.
to Google
Oh,
site.
Yeah,
Google
you
Docs
could
or
easily
whatever?
do
Yeah.
it to
Google
some,
Docs, maybe?
you know,
I forget,
virtual
Dennison
hosting
uses a
website.
Google.
You're
I
talking
forget
someone
which
who's
one
not
it
tech
is,
savvy.
but
Like,
it's
well, like-
free.
like a Picasso web album or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
That's an idea.
See, if you do get a subsite for the school, then on the school building committee site on Town Hall, you can just do the link.
Do a link.
Just do a link right to it, and that way
Yeah.
people can go to it and see
Yeah,
it.
to a Google
But you were saying
site.
it was dumping all the minutes and all the documents and
No,
everything?
not the
No,
minutes and the agendas,
The
it was
large
dumped in the
documents.
Really?
reports and
He was
studies
putting
and
up
all that.
everything.
Oh, okay.
Putting them up where, on the town website?
Town website.
Oh.
Or even
Kelly,
Dropbox
just
would
to
be
bring
a
you up to speed, here's a plan of the building. Phyllis can see, this is the gym, the
Oh, Dropbox.
cafeteria, the three-story
Dropbox would be-
section, the
Oh,
one-story
really?
kindergarten section. They started foundations here, right at the gym, at the bus entrance, what will be the bus entrance, and went around the building this way, and they're over to here now, I think, about, first with footings, the lower part of the foundation, and then with foundation walls. That's what that picture is, if you see those
Right,
pictures. Those are the walls, coming up with the rebar, and, I think they've gotten to about here with walls.
So it's been no ledge, I guess, then.
No, I was just gonna mention that, the only
Yeah,
place
they
that
did
looks
right
like
at the-
Hit some-
is where we
taking it off.
expected it, like right around here, near the front door, but a little bit further south, right there. And where we also expected it, right here, next to the teacher's parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the good news is, in both, or at least in this case where they started attacking it, they've been able to chip it with equipment, no blasting required, and it seems to be coming out, it seems to be fracturing, and it's kinda, I don't know if it's sedimentary rock, but it seems to be
like a shale.
breaking out,
Mm.
fairly easily to get down.
So it's
to the
really
grade.
layered.
And then
Yeah,
the
but
piece
usually,
that's
they're
over
using heavy
here,
equipment, they don't wanna get involved in blasting
If-
for
if
the
you
amount
were
that we
able to
have.
walk
By the
out
time they
there,
do the
the-
analysis, it'd be.
the ledge that's here is about, the size of a car or a bus, kind of vertical, but, here. And we're actually thinking that, like we might have mentioned, if you remember, I think Rob would remember, when we bring this driveway around, we may be able to leave that exposed.
Right.
And just go by it. It'll be a nice feature,
Yeah.
we won't have to pay the expense of
Yeah.
taking it down.
Yeah, no.
Good idea.
And we,
Good natural features.
we specifically held the parking area back to allow for that, that's why there, we
How
didn't.
high does it go?
From the finished grade, it may be 6 or 8 feet high,
Oh, okay.
when all is said and done.
It's a decent
It's in the right
size
spot,
park.
though.
Yeah.
Have you had any water?
Be a great graffiti feature.
Yeah,
for the
it was,
kids.
that's what I was thinking, yeah.
We didn't think we would, so we, from the
Yeah, I
board,
know.
we didn't think we would.
Sorry.
So, yeah, no surprises
Every
that way.
class will go in.
Yeah, that's
Exactly,
right.
it'd be class or
It'll be
whatever.
painted.
All right, Chuck, you wanna talk us through what you wanna talk us through?
Yeah, the monthly report, as Pat said, is.
That's what Chuck's, they're part of the agenda.
Again, when it goes to the MSBA, and the real issues within the monthly report are just the reflection of the budget. We've asked in previous meetings if the cash flow's been done. Cash flow's attached,
And there's something to look at.
well, it looks like this. This was reviewed, Mike and I had a meeting with the town finance department, and Chris Edwards, to review, cash flow, so help them project. He was bond. Wasn't bond counsel, but it was financial advisor. Yeah, so we met with all three of them to review cash flow projections, and we gave them the cash flow projections so they could look at the best way to provide their bond to do their borrowing based on this. So I think it was helpful to them. I'll update this probably once every 2 or 3 more months, 3 months, and review it with them again if they ever need to. So it has an outlook. Right now, we're tracking pretty close. I mean, we're a little heavy up
You
front,
just-
and I do have to
It's
revise it to
approximate, yeah,
include
based on
the change order. The
Doing it
1.7
equal.
million change order, I do
We
have to
billing it
update
Across.
some of that across, so,
What I can't get is what should it be and what is it?
Oh, yeah, 'cause
Well, actually, if you look at,
'Cause we
I'm just
were
looking at it now, if you look at December 13,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just approved that bill.
okay.
Right, we're up
Theoretically, we're
through
about a
December
month ahead,
13th.
we're about a month ahead, because it's January
Yep,
14 is where you'd have the $1,080,000, we just approved about $1,016,000 or whatever it was. So, even with the delay and everything else, actually, according to this, and I would be the first one to tell you
pretty
that
close.
this is not 100% accurate,
Yeah.
because what's accurate is the,
this is a really kind of good realistic flow chart. you know?
exactly. So,
Cash flow chart.
what it tells you is that
Construction work.
it's a best guess, yeah,
Yeah.
so that figure there, for anybody who's interested in looking at it, you could actually look at it and interpolate the, boy, geez, we did actually, the work that was proposed in January, we actually did it in December. You know, but again, that's not necessarily an accurate representation, but it's a guide, you know. It becomes important if you have 4 or 5 months where you're running half of what you got a problem.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
yeah.
But again, these will flip-flop back and forth, and they're a rough idea.
It's really a
The re-
pacing report, you know?
Exactly, it's obviously provides some guidance on your funding.
What did we authorize? 48 million? Was that the number?
47.
46?
Okay. Is there anything else you wanna?
No, just if you're flipping through the monthly report and you look at the summary report up front, I know the numbers are a little small, but if you see some negative numbers in there, don't be alarmed. It's not affecting your bottom line, it's not affected. It's in there because we're still working through the details with the MSBA and the project funding agreement. Revision, you might recall, as we discussed this prior to bid, that after you bid, the MSBA revises the project funding agreement, quote unquote, with contract facility. And what it does is if you're under bid, which in this case you were, they lower the percent, not the percentage, but they lower the amount based on the percentage of what they'll reimburse. Then, if we didn't have the arsenic issue, that would have been easy, done deal, we all washed our hands, and MSBA and I agreed and we moved on. I mean, you agreed, we moved on. But since that issue, and you're tapping into that $4 million of bid underrun to fix this fix this remediation issue, they now looked, as Pat said, they looked at this and said, geez, if I do this, I'm gonna wipe out contingency of 1.8 million, and we're starting this job pretty much from scratch. They went, no, we don't want you to do that. But they have to work out the mechanics within themselves on how they do that, and it's not something they normally do or have to do. So we're setting it, we're paving a little
Once
new
again,
ground for
yeah.
them.
Trendsetters,
Georgetown.
Georgetown,
Yeah,
there you go.
so,
Nice.
I mean, we've been through it before with them.
Carving a new path.
Another project, they really didn't like the way they did it on that one, so now we're helping them find a new way to do this, I guess. is the
Oh,
best way to
good.
put it.
Wonderful.
It actually is very beneficial because it allows us to redo the budget within ProPay that Mary downstairs has been submitting and paying is. It allows us to redo that budget to make it more realistic. So when you see some of these negatives, it's only because I'm already accounting for the money you're spending for Green Seal, the money you're spending for the additional services Wilcox and Barton, and the money we're spending for the remediation tape work. I'm accounting for that now because I don't want to lose sight of it when they finally do get to where they want to be. We think we're very close. They asked me a couple questions just the other day. We gave them some answers. And I think we're gonna see that piece of paper spreadsheet from them that explains how they'd like to see it done. And then I'm gonna mark that up and I'm gonna send it back to them because I wanna fix all these negatives as we go. Because I want this whole remediation project, for lack of a better term, fixed all up front and all done, so we start zero, more or less.
Yeah.
So
That makes
that's why,
sense.
if you look at these negatives, if anybody sees this, you pick it up, it's a public document. We just wanted everybody to understand, don't be scared that there's no kidding. We're not under budget, we're realigning the budget, and because it affects a funding agency, I just can't do it.
All right.
And the good news is that in a conversation with them last week, it cleared the staff that's been working on it, what we gave them makes sense
Oh,
based on the
okay.
tweaking we're gonna have to do.
Oh.
It's just gonna go to an upper level to get them to say, okay,
a good question.
we were hoping to have it for this meeting as we did the memo that we got from MSB on the middle high school, so we had something in writing.
Sorry.
Again, it didn't happen, but indications
I don't
last
see
week
one.
were that it was pretty
Usually
close.
they-
What they saw is pretty close to what we
ones
submitted
down here?
as being accurate.
We hit the
But the
holidays,
property
too,
line
and a lot of
right
people, they took a lot of time off,
Okay.
pretty much shut
And
down.
it's snow days.
Yeah, it's
That's
not-
such a good
You
thing.
can't tell.
The last part of the report is, as you flip through the report, is this thing, it's this one right here. Potential change order report. I mentioned this to you a long time ago when we first started the project. This is to show you that we're tracking, we always are tracking, what are potential impacts to your contingency due to change orders. I show on here the things that have been issued by DRA to the contractor for pricing, and the issues that have been brought to us by the contractor that he considers might be issues. I say might, because we haven't vetted these yet. Some of these are putting out there. So when you look at this PCO number, I'll go through this and then we'll go through it every once in a
Let's see
while.
what gets the proposed change order.
And then the RCP stands for Request for Change Proposal, and the CCD is a Construction Change Directive, and then obviously it goes through the
I had them
descriptions.
adjust
The first one's a change to the gate design, the revisions, and I think that's on the agenda to be discussed a little later, so we'll leave that on hold for now. The remediation measures is that 1.75 million that you approved at your previous meetings. And then there's two new issues that have come up. There was an additional septic tank and a demolition of the leach field structures that were found. They weren't quite the way we thought they were during the design phase, and the fact that there's an additional septic tank that was discovered. It's actually not being used and not being connected. It's just sitting there. Well, it needs to be removed. So it's a review with the design team, part of the leach field structures, and they're not pipes like you
Is
would
it
on
right
a
near the other
residential.
one?
It's underneath the
What's that?
parking
Where
lot.
is it?
It's off the parking lot, on the back side of the parking lot, but the additional septic tank is underneath the parking lot. So when we get there to do that site work, eventually that has to be removed. So they have to identify that. We'll price it back and forth and find the best way to do it. And then the last item is an item we've actually talked about in previous meetings, which is to relocate the force main, which is the main septic sewer line coming out of the building. It'll go to the proposed leach fields in the north field area, as we've talked about for a year or two now. The contractors proposed that they would like to find an easier route to bring this force main around. We have it coming down below the school now and going back up all the way across. They'd like to bring it up on the other side of the school.
We had recommended that early in the game, to go around the school. The consensus was that it might be too close to the wetland and it might create a problem and so forth. The contractor came up with the same idea, saying, I can do that without a problem, without infringing. But I will tell you, we won't recommend it at a credit of 5,400. We think it's worth a bigger credit than that. Because quite frankly, in taking a credit, DRA and their engineers have to go back in and redesign the configuration of the leach field. I mean, it'll end up costing us the same kind of money, so why go through it? So
Right.
we've already indicated to them that they're gonna have to come up with a lot more of a change, because we're saving how many feet? 300 feet, Chuck? 300 or 400 feet of force main? It's worth more than $5,000.
Yeah.
So again, we continue to work on that, and
Okay.
So, bottom line is this report, and this will be more important as we move deeper into the building, should there be any potential change orders or impacts to your budget, so you can see that we're projecting what we know, what we think is coming up, and these are estimates. Some of these, I put asterisks all over these things going, these are estimates, these have not been vetted by anybody, they're guesses from people as they put them together. We just want you to see that we're tracking these things up front, so that we know at any time. I update this thing daily for me, daily. As I get a price come in, I'm putting it in there and I see what the impacts are. I update it monthly to you in the reports, so you can see how you're trending across on your
Right.
contingency.
So did you resubmit?
This does reflect your initial contingency of 1.8 million,
Yep.
that I'm taking the 1,750 off it. That's not gonna be the case, but that's all I know at this point, so that's why I showed it to you.
All right.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching the Selectmen's meeting last night, and the issue on the Elm Street study came up,
Yeah.
and
There's nothing from Brady.
somebody said, the report said that there were no drain, they don't foresee any drainage issues on Elm Street?
Yeah, we didn't vote on the contract because we wanted to send it back to have them vet it, right, for having drainage included in it, because they said they basically weren't gonna be touching anything that already exists. Is that about right?
But there is gonna be drainage though, right?
Oh, yeah, we were just concerned that in their design, they were only talking about existing drainage, you know, and we were like, well, if we're redoing this, we're likely gonna have to have additional or different drainage, and
Right.
so we.
'Cause I'm
we
looking
pushed
for all
it
the
back.
work we're doing on the access road.
Yeah, we pushed it back to be able to include it and say, hey, this has to be included, because they were saying, we're not touching anything but existing. So we were concerned about that, because if we open up the road,
It has.
the existing probably isn't gonna handle what we're talking about.
Yeah, we have 8 catch basins coming down the road right now,
Yeah.
and it's gotta connect somewhere, and
Correct.
right now,
No,
we
I mean,
don't have a
and it
connection
would,
source.
but we were just concerned that it wasn't addressing any of that.
Okay.
And then we also said, you know, to to the water department to think about if they need to replace the pipe in that, water main, while we have the road open, to do that so that we're doing it all at once and we're not putting a main in 10 years, ripping up the new road that we just laid down.
Okay. Anything else? Green Seal. Do you want to talk about
Did you
Green
want to
Seal?
approve the, that change order,
what about-
the
Is that the gate?
The gate.
gate?
Oh, yeah, we have to do the gate first.
We didn't get a number on that yet, right?
Yeah, there was a.
Or
there
was
a-
that on here? Did I miss
I'm
that?
trying to confirm that number, actually, because the
It's-
first time they
Yeah, it was
submitted it, they had the wrong.
7071 that we're looking at. Is that the change order for the gate?
707155.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trying
Was that solid? I thought we were.
Yeah, the
to
only-
confirm that, that's what Chuck can.
The only number I got was the RCD number,
Yeah,
that's all I
Braid's
got. I didn't
markup,
get-
or maybe RCD's markup was wrong.
Yeah.
This was before the overhead and profit.
Right,
Yeah.
right, 707155.
So that number's right?
That's just
That's for two gates.
That's all I had.
You know, there's one at the top and one
Oh,
at the
okay.
bottom.
Okay.
Of the
And these were the bigger ones,
That's
the big
RCD.
gates.
All right,
the
so-
full
And
gates.
Great market.
Okay.
I-
What
yeah,
is
I
the
have it
amount
at
we're
Braid's,
voting
yeah.
on?
$7,071.55.
Just like I showed in my report.
50 cents.
Right, on that page
Right,
Chuck
it's
was
on
just
the
talking
report.
about, of proposed change orders. It's
Okay.
proposed change
So the
order
reason we're
1.1.
changing the
Much of a
gate
markup.
is to answer some concerns that the fire chief had, correct?
And others about just
And
having a
people in
How it
general, we
swings
weren't
and everything,
liking the
right.
chain and all
Right.
that.
And this
The
change
application change.
just amounted to
Right.
this 7,000.
Well, hold on, it's not just the gate either. It is for the shoulder work on the
Right.
side of the.
The
as
gate.
As you may remember, we talked about the shoulder work going up and down the length of the access road and changing it to.
To
when we
loam
got
and
to the
seed.
Johnson's to loam and sealed, and when we stayed up, we stayed with a drainage type of facility. This
Okay.
makes those corrections as we go.
And that
This is
includes,
an all
So is there gonna be more?
No, this is the number.
Okay.
That's the number.
That's it.
does
But
that
it's more
include the
than just
pedestrian
gate.
pass-through
I didn't
on the
want you to
gate?
think you're paying $7,000
Yes, it includes
for a gate.
any bump
You're
out.
not.
Okay.
There's a
Okay.
bunch of drainage work.
I thought we were paying it for 2 gates.
No.
It is two gates,
Okay.
but, and
And that,
related work.
all right.
Yeah.
So we just need to vote on accepting the change order number 2 for $7,071.50.
55 cents.
55 cents.
Sorry.
Would anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That's all set. MSBA's review bid, Chuck, you just talked about that, so we're all set with that. Green Seal, who, by the way, I was very impressed with when I went to that meeting. I can see, I'm just giving you my personal opinion and what I was able to observe. They are doing a lot of work out there. They are not slacking off at all. They have reports around.
They do a daily
Yeah.
report, I mean,
yeah.
just real quick, I mean, and Mike gets copies of these, but I mean, they do a daily report that's an hour-by-hour progression. And then they have a complete rundown in
they're
here
very
of what they're talking to the contractor about. If he sees anything, he's right on top of them to correct things. There's all of the technical data that supports them. There's photographs, he's even got his own little map as to where they're working and how
Yeah.
he defines the areas he's working.
Good.
So, again, like I said, I mean, he's
Thorough.
going
He's earning his
8 hours
keep.
a day.
Right.
There's nobody
Yes.
sleeping in a trailer, I can
Yeah.
tell you
We
that.
didn't make a
He's
mistake
very, very
by
thorough.
going with someone
Very
cheaper,
thorough.
I guess is what
Right,
I
they're
would like
very
to
So
say.
you've worked with them, and George, you
Yes.
had worked with them both, right?
Is
So
this
you were-
Jim, this Jim Luker?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were happy with them in the past
Yes.
on the other
Yeah.
projects,
No,
so.
I-
Jim
good.
comes up to our weekly meetings.
Yeah, he comes,
Yes.
To all our weekly construction
Yeah.
meetings. His monitor is actually taking my office over in the trailer, so I'm carrying.
Yeah.
He uses the back end of the
Yeah.
trailer,
Deserves it. He's there every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
I'm only there a couple days a week, and there's plenty of room in this trailer. You could hold dances in this thing.
Yeah.
Because it's got a huge conference table for 20 people, so,
Which we need,
we
actually,
fill.
yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
So Jim comes up every week, reviews the progress with us, reviews the issues and the concerns we have, and with his guy, he is on top of it.
Yes,
Very
Yes.
much so.
we made a good
So
decision.
much knowledge that you,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
we made a good decision.
Good.
He's got a very good way about him. He's low-key, but he speaks very authoritatively in his own low-key way of expressing,
we
if
could
there's
ask-
something in there that's gotta be addressed, he puts it right out. And the young guy that's in the field, equally passionate.
Yes.
Right.
He's not afraid of ruffling anybody's feathers. If he sees something, he wants it corrected, he goes out, notes it in the report.
But his mannerisms are really good.
Yeah.
He's not being bossy. I think
Yeah.
he's working very well with
There isn't
everybody out
anything
there.
you can't ask him, and he's got it right
Yeah.
there. I mean, there's,
Good.
there's no
Yeah.
checking, double
With this
checking.
kid too, you should meet this kid because
Yeah.
he's like Jim and that.
Oh, really?
He's very young. Boy, he just
It's
comes-
not his
he
son.
just-
They're not
No, no,
related.
no.
No.
No,
Yeah.
he just comes right in there. I mean, he
Yeah.
just gets it.
And we got a call
Very
back,
impressive.
when
That's
we
great.
just started, it was the first week that they were there. And I got a call from Jim Luca, and this must be another principal in the equal to Jim, or maybe above Jim or something. But they called up in a kind of a conference call to make sure that what was going on out there, we were happy with, and were we happy with their people, and were we comfortable with it, did we have any issues? So, I mean, I thought that really was very customer friendly.
Follow up.
Yeah, just follow up.
Really
How are we
good.
doing? If there's anything else we can do, if there's
Good.
anything else we need to, correct. I said, at this point, only, you've been there a week, I said, we'll certainly be the first one to speak up, but right now, things look like they're on the right track.
So at this point, I think the most important thing is there have been no alarms being raised about major dust issues or anything else like that. They're doing the job that they need to do, and it sounds like Bob Brait's really listening and making sure that, everyone's following the rules that have been set up by this health and safety
Oh, yeah, there's no
study.
guessing that they're not gonna do it.
No, it's working.
There's
It's,
a lot of confidence.
yeah, no,
with
I
this guy.
think it's good. Is there anything else you wanna add about this, or are we okay?
No, I think we're okay, yeah.
Excellent.
All right, so the Johnson driveway design.
We've gotten the survey of that area that was needed, because remember, we needed to, as part of the agreement between the town and the Johnsons, help devise a driveway and an access to their doorway, and before we could do that, we needed the survey of this area and the elevation of these doorways. We just got that. They finally were able to, get through the snow and survey it, so.
They went on the Thursday of
um,
the storm.
Our landscape architect will be working on this in the next week
Okay.
or so,
Yeah.
and we'll have something to show at the next meeting.
All right,
Yeah.
so put that on
So we're doing that driveway for them, is that?
That's
Oh,
my
yes,
understanding. I'm
Mike.
not sure how it's intended to get constructed, Mike, if it's part of this project, and
Is
we'll
that
have
what we're-
Well,
rate and price it.
we're anticipating it being part of the project.
Yeah,
But at town meeting in the spring, we'll have a warrant article to convey a permanent easement as well. Both legal counsels for us and the Johnsons are working the wording out.
the, all right, and then the groundbreaking, we have another issue, so we'll get back to you
okay.
on it.
Yeah, we were gonna try to do it in 2 weeks with our, in
It's
conjunction with
change.
our,
not gonna be the
I can
20th.
change the date,
Probably
it's
within
okay.
notice.
I know, and it's, you know what,
Just wait till the
that's
building's
like the
built.
worst day.
There is another milestone when you top off the steel.
Yes,
that-
I
Oh, there you
mentioned
go,
that.
something like that, yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
mentioned it to Jeff, he said, I think we're gonna have the
Actually-
groundbreaking after the topping.
I
Well,
know.
the good thing is they'll have steel on site for February theoretically, so we may have the beam that kids can sign and stuff as part of the ceremony.
So we could
I
just
don't
do
think you'll have
both.
it, because that's gonna be the A sequence, that's starting with C,
Yeah.
the
No,
erection.
I think
Well, we can
wanna
pick
do
this, we could pick a. C.
Margaret,
No,
is
they
there
like to
any
do it
other
last
half
week.
days
Oh, you wanna do
coming
it
up
last
in
week?
February
Yeah.
except for that
Make
first
it-
week?
Okay, scratch that, we'll pick a different week.
Do you know?
I'm sorry?
I'm talking to Margaret, I'm
Sorry,
talking
Margaret.
beyond you.
Oh, I didn't know Margaret was here, I didn't know.
February 5th is half day.
Right, is there any other?
There is another day, I can't tell you exactly.
In February?
No, not in February.
Oh, not in February.
All right, we'll
Okay.
get back to you. We have an issue or two to straighten out. All right,
Good.
anything else anyone would like to bring up? Would anyone care to make the motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New
Good
Year to
evening.
all of you.
Is the location of the next meeting still in question?
Yes, it is.
Well,
no.